This is Zygmunt. We're now live.
Okay, thanks, Brian. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm not sure who of my curriculum committee is on campus, but I have the agenda pulled up. We'll go through things. We can discuss things as we go. And then I know that I think, Bree, you're the one going to be sharing with the public at the actual board meeting, correct? Yep. Okay, great. All right, I just wanted to start with an Interreading update. So we've been using Interreading this school year, K-4, and I've met with some of the teachers in specific grade levels. It is just so, you know, the board and the teachers and the parents realize it is a bit more challenging, and we talked about this last year. The text is a little bit more involved. It's a higher level. I looked at some of the tests that the students were taking, and the DOK level of the questions, which basically means the level of the hardness of the question, is a level 2 and level 3, which has a lot more analysis type questions in it. So the test questions are tougher than our previous reading series, and we knew that going in. I did meet with some of our second grade teachers. They had some concerns about scores on tests and things like that. And we talked through some things. We found some places where we could, you know, gain some different point value things. So they're working through it, which is really great. But it is tougher. And we knew that going in, so we're okay with it. The thing that I do want to mention in our Interreading update is that the teachers have been asking for time to coordinate lessons, because it is a new reading series, and I completely understand it's new. It's nothing they've ever done before. The routine is different, and of course, routine in general is very different this school year. So things are completely turned upside down. But they have been asking for some time to meet as teams. So basically, you know, second grade team, third grade team, fourth grade team, that kind of thing. And I completely understand why. I did have a question from one of our second grade teachers about the grammar pieces and the scope and sequence. So I reached out to the company. They sent it to me in printable format, which was nice. So I sent it off to them. But that was one thing that they said, you know, this would be something we would be able to do if we had some time to meet with our grade level teams, is look for these kind of things and try to sit down and figure out, you know, are we on the right path? Do we have enough time to get everything done? What of the pieces do we want to do? And you know, those of us in education know any type of series that you purchase, there's so much in there. You really need to sit and pick out what are the most important things that you need to share with the students. What are the most important pieces you need to, you know, the non-negotiables. So that's one of the things that I agree with the teachers in trying to find time. I know we're meeting this week as an administrative team, and I believe there's a meeting on Thursday. But I do believe that, you know, giving them or finding some time for them to work in collaborative teams would be really beneficial. I understand, you know, quantity and quality, and I want our students to get a quality piece. But in order to do that, we have to find some time for them to get together with their group members. There's a lot in the program, and there's a lot of things that are not completely necessary, more of like an extra added piece. So just trying to figure those things out and get into a routine of, with, you know, every story, this is what we're going to focus on. These are the things we're going to use. This is how we're going to set it up. So just having time to do that, I think, would be really beneficial. So I am agreeing with the teachers, especially with the Interreading series, because it is brand new. If we could find some time, and I know we talked at the last board meeting about, you know, bringing people in, but it would be good if we could find, and I talked to Mr. Becker about that today, it would be nice if we could chunk of time as a whole team, or even, you know, 3 people together. It's something to kind of give them that ability to look through the system, look through the program, pick out the pieces that are routine and need to be done with every single story. But it is more challenging. And like I said, we've been seeing that, you know, students are not scoring as high as they had been in the past. And we knew that was going to happen until they get used to how the questions are asked and the level of the questions. Like I said, the level of the questions are a lot more analysis, a lot more thought process. It's not just black and white questions. You know, you have to think about it. You know, one of the things in second grade was author's purpose. You know, students don't really think about that. And I was in, and I'm going to give a shout out to Miss Habowski. I was in her room the other day, and the kids were going through, like, what is an author's purpose? Why do they do things? And, you know, they were yelling out answers. It was great to hear. So it is challenging. The teachers are working through it. I applaud them on it. It's not easy. The kids are having a little bit of a tough time, but you know what? A little bit of mental struggle isn't so bad. So I'm proud of our teachers and proud of our students for forging ahead on it. As far as Edgenuity, as you know, is our 6 through 12 cyber program. One of the nice things about having Edgenuity is that it's available to all of our students in 6 through 12, so not just our cyber students. So what some of our teachers in the middle school have been doing, specifically our math teachers in 6th and 7th grade, is because they normally use for their curriculum connected math, which is a very small group, pair-oriented type of program. Obviously, you know, in times of today, we can't sit in small groups and work through math problems together. It's just not feasible. So what they've done is they've taken the Edgenuity program and they've customized the math piece of it. So I know Mr. Caseman and Mr. Fagley had been working on the 6th grade Edgenuity. So they took the 6th grade Edgenuity math program and they basically customized it. So they took all of the videos out. So what they're doing is they're teaching the concepts, and then the students are logging on to Edgenuity and working through assignments and activities in the program. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. I was actually really impressed with what they've done. I've been looking through their customized programs. It's really neat to see them. They're teaching the program, but yet they're using Edgenuity, which we have, so they might as well use it. I'm glad that they're taking advantage of that. And they're having the students log on and work through problems and practice problems that way. So it's really good use of what we have available. So I wanted to give them a shout out to that. We do have, and I talked about this at other meetings, we do have our Interreading Fidelity Checklist, and we found an Everyday Math Fidelity Checklist. So what I did was I had asked our teacher leaders in the elementary school to look through these documents, see if they seemed appropriate, see if they were what we're doing actually in the classroom. And I was going to start this week, but we got into our math screeners, which I'll talk to you about in a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the classrooms next week and just use the checklist to see if it's useful, if it's productive, if it's not. I don't want it to be cumbersome. And I also want it to make sure that it matches what the teachers are actually doing in the classroom. So I'm going to be going into classrooms, popping in and out with our checklist just to try to practice and see what it's like, and get some feedback from them on whether or not these seem appropriate, whether or not it fits what we're doing, and then we can, you know, adjust them from there. Do you have any questions on the curriculum pieces?
Yeah, that's great. Really quickly on this.
You know, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. Maybe it's my, go ahead, sorry.
On this fidelity checklist, when you met with the team leaders, were there any other concerns off the bat other than the planning piece to try and make sure that they're getting the most appropriate pieces into the curriculum? Were there any other concerns or barriers to success that were identified based on those fidelity checklists off the
I got feedback from a couple of the teacher leaders on the fidelity checklist. It was more so these are things we do like on a Friday, or these are things we do when necessary. It wasn't more about the actual program itself. One of the things that I do know they were concerned about was the pieces that are in there and what's all in there. There is a lot in there. And I think they just need time to figure out what are the most important pieces. And you know, and when we met with our trainers last year, she did go through some things, and a lot of them are in the fidelity checklist. But I think it's more like not to be weird, but the program itself is it's cumbersome. There's a lot of stuff in there, and I know even myself when I go in, I went in last week and I was looking for something, and I was like, where did I find that? Like I couldn't remember which like tile it was under, and so it's a lot of just learning where things are. And how to get them out of there. So it's not so much, I don't believe it's not so much the system itself, it's figuring out where things are, where they're at, how do I get to them, and what's the quickest way to get to them, if that makes sense.
Sure. Do you have, one other thing I was wondering, do you know, based on talking with others in your role in other districts, are there surrounding districts that are using or have been using this interreading curriculum?
No, they're not locally, not close to us. I had been in contact with a school out by Pittsburgh, and they said the same thing. They said the program is great. They love the stories. They love the high level of expectations and the high level of questioning. The one thing they complained about as well was finding the things, like because the online piece is so massive. There's so many places that you can look that you kind of forget where you went to to find it the first time. So that was their big thing.
Thanks.
Nobody around here is using it. We're pretty much pioneers, I guess we'll say.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Anything else? All right, I wanted to share our cyber numbers with you. So right now, as you know, we have Accelerate Education, which is our K-5 program. So we have 14 students in the elementary school, again, because that's K-4 in Accelerate Ed. And then we have 6 in our middle school because we have 6 fifth graders. Our middle school then from 6 to 8 uses Edgenuity, and we have 23 students in there. And then our high school also uses Edgenuity, and there's 20 students. We have a total of 63 students in our SOCO cyber program right now. And you can see the breakdown here. Grade level wise, we have a massive amount in 8th grade. That seems to be the bulk of our students in the cyber program. We do have in 7 through 12, we have 4 teachers at the high school level that are monitoring those students. In 6th grade, well, in the high school, it's Mrs. Troutman, it's Mr. Mensch, Mr. Henry, and Miss Jones. And then in 6th grade, we have Mr. Pecora. And then in K-5, we're actually using the vendor teachers. Just because they were available, and it's easier to put them into the vendor teacher. I do check daily. I check logins, I check progress. I do call parents. I actually had a parent call me today about things. So I'm in contact with a lot of our parents and a lot of our students. I had a student call me. Actually, it was funny. She teamed me actually Friday night and was like, I don't know how to, input this thing. I'm like, it's okay, we'll figure it out. So we are monitoring them. We did decide, just so that everybody is aware, that our cyber students will not be getting a per se report card every quarter. Only because the cyber program itself is basically a beginning to end system. That's how it's designed. So what the cyber program does is you start a start date, you pick an end date, and it takes the curriculum and it spreads it out over that amount of time. So the students can work, more on ELA this week and less on science, and more on science and less on ELA. So it's kind of like the flexibility and the availability of students to be able to do that is hard to put that into a quarterly report card. So what we did, though, was every parent will be getting a progress report weekly on how their child's doing, their grade, their, how far they are in the program. And then what we'll do is we will look at each quarter when it's report card time. We'll basically look and see if the student should be on the honor roll. We'll put them on the honor roll, and then at the end of the year we'll put in their final grade. So their final grade from either Accelerate Education or Edgenuity will be their final grade. That will be in their permanent record. It just seemed a little more difficult to try to figure out quarterly because, again, a lot of our students will work on one subject for a week and then they'll work on the next subject. That's just kind of how they do it. Or some of our students work Monday through Thursday and then they're off on Friday. So it just kind of was that flexibility, and that's what they like about it, is being able to kind of do that. So we didn't want to pigeonhole them and say, all right, well, you have to be this far by the end of the first marking period, because that's not how the program is actually set up. So I just wanted to share our numbers with you. So we write 63 students in SOCO Cyber. Things are going well. We do have students that bounce in and out. We had a student that went in for about a week and was like, yeah, this really isn't for me, came back to school. We had students in the very beginning that were in SOCO Cyber and then jumped. And then we have students that were, did live and did some in person and was like, you know what, we really want to do the cyber program. So I'm hoping, like, now, since it is near the end of October, we're kind of settling in. And I have a feeling this is probably going to be where we're at right now. Just so you know as well, the Edgenuity, the 6 through 12 program that we use, that is a full year program. Now, as far as the Accelerate Ed, we do that in session A and session B. So it's like semester A, semester B. So sometime in and around January, we'll be transitioning those students into like Math B, which would be the second set of their entire program. So they kind of catch a break in between where we have to reload them into the B part of each of the courses that they're in. But it seems to be, for a lot of our students, it's working well. I've been looking at grades. A lot of students are doing really well. It's interesting to see when they log on, I'm not going to lie. A lot of our older students are on, really late at night. It's funny because that's how high school students usually run that. They'd rather be on late at night than early in the morning. We kind of talked about some cyber requirements, and I wanted the board to kind of look at this document just because I think we need a little bit more. I know it's the flexibility of the cyber program, but I think we need a little bit of structure, because we do have students that sometimes don't log on in a long amount of time. So I wanted you to kind of look through this. We're basically saying, although they're not required to log in, they're required to log into the program and actively complete assignments and, try to stay up on their progress. So we're looking at, are the students making progress? Are they logging in enough? We're going to monitor those. And if it gets to a point where we see a student isn't logging in as much as they should be, we're going to go back and say, hey, we're going to call the parent, we're going to call the student. I've already had our teachers have been contacting students. They've been contacting parents. I know some of our school counselors have been contacting students and parents saying, you need to log on, you need to get in, you need to do some of this. So we're trying to make sure that we stay on top of this. But we wanted something that kind of said, hey, you do get a free and appropriate public education, but you also need to do that. You're part of it because you're not in school for us to monitor you. So, it kind of gives a little bit more stability to the program itself. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you. One of the things I'm very excited about is we have Matthew Null, who is the marketing manager for Gadensia. Mrs. Dobeck had called me, it wasn't last week, it was the week before. And she said, I was talking to this Matthew Null from Gadensia. He would really like to do some presentations for our students, for our teachers, for, our parents. He does a lot of current drug trend presentations. Now it's free, which is really, really cool. So I'm asking that, for our November 16th meeting, instead of doing a curriculum committee meeting, I can send things out to you in the Friday letter, or I could even put an agenda on here if you'd like to see some things, but I would really like for him to do a half-hour presentation for our parents just on current drug trends. I think it's really super important. And I think in order to get the word out there, it's nice if we can attach it to something substantial like a board meeting. So I would be willing to give up the committee meeting if we could have him speak. He talked to me, we chatted on the phone for about a half hour. And one of the things he had mentioned was, he's like, do you realize that, depending on certain pictures or things on your shirt, that kind of signifies what type of drug you are using? And I was like, hold on a minute. I'm very naive, I think, when it comes to things like that. I guess I just don't, it's not that I don't pay attention. I guess I just don't believe that those things can be true. But that was, one thing that he was like, this really needs to get out to parents. And I was like, I think I need to go through my child's closet and, see what's on their shirts. I don't really notice things like that. But I just think it would be really neat for our parents. And it would be nice if we could attach it to the board meeting, because I said to him, at the last board meeting, I think we had 175, people watching. So I just think this is a really neat opportunity for us to get the word out. The other thing he's willing to do is he can talk to our administrators. He can also set up a time to talk with the teachers. And I was talking to a guardian, a grandparent the other day about drug trends and things like that. And she said, it would be really nice if somebody could talk to, guardians and grandparents about what do we do? Like, how can we help? Like, where are we supposed to turn? So I thought, wow, that's something I hadn't thought about, is, a lot of grandparents and stuff are taking on the role of guardianship because of a drug trend or a drug issue, a drug problem. So I thought, wow, that really hit home to me. And I thought, what, you're really right. Like, we need to kind of get that word out there. So if the board would be okay with me replacing the curriculum committee on November the 16th with a presentation for the parents from Matt, I know he would do a great job. He's going to meet with the administrators prior to that, so he can go over what he would talk about. And if the board wants to be involved in that as well, that would be great, just so we can kind of see where he's coming from. And again, he's not selling us anything. He's just trying to get information out. So super, super nice guy. I thought that would be a really great thing for us to do. Any questions or comments on that section? All right, I'm going to talk about our screeners. So this is under the assessment piece. So last year we started using the Dibbles reading screener with just our Title I students. So this year we moved into using it with everybody. And it's a great screener. It gives us a lot of really good information. What I like is that it's pencil paper. So it's not a computer program where the kids just log on and press buttons. I'm always nervous that they're not really reading the questions or paying attention to the questions. So I like that it's paper pencil. A lot of it, now not the actual the comprehension piece, but the other part is a lot of one-on-one, which is really neat, because you get to sit with the student, you get to hear them read, you get to watch and see what mistakes they're making, that kind of thing. The other thing that we just recently started is our math screener, which is through the Dibbles system, but it's actually an easy CBM math. But again, it's paper pencil. We started doing that last week. I will have in the Friday letter, I will give you a school progress report basically of our reading and also of our math. I had a couple math people that needed to finish up yet, so I didn't want to put that out there without it being complete information. So what I'm going to do is I wanted to share with you a screenshot of, now this is basically what a class would look like. So if I were, if it's Mrs. Zigmont's class, these are my students. This shows me how they scored. The end over here is their composite. So when we look at intensive means those students need a lot of help with whatever is happening with their reading. The strategic, they need a little bit of help. They probably need a little push, little reminder, little review. And our green guys are doing well. They're on grade level. They're doing a good job. Sometimes we have blues. This one was just a sample that we didn't have blue. Sometimes we have blue, which means they're above grade level. So what the teachers are doing for our MTSS period is they're taking this class report and they're looking at students. So the very first student at the top, I'm looking, he's intensive. So I look at the very first piece to the left, which is our letter name fluency. And I look, oh my goodness, he's intensive. So I see the first student, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and a couple more students. So they would be a group where I would practice my letters with them. If they don't need that, like the bottom two, then I wouldn't worry about them. So I go to the next one. Okay, my phonemic awareness. So I look at those. Okay, these are the students that need help with this. So this is a report that helps our teachers group our students during the MTSS period. What's really neat about this is it zeroes down to the actual skill that they need help with. What is also really cool is that after 2 weeks, our paraprofessionals are actually progress monitoring those students on that specific skill to see if they're making improvement in that skill. So we're doing a lot of pieces together. We're gathering a lot of data. We're also using in grades 2 through 4 our MAZE test, which is basically our comprehension test. And that is showing us how their comprehension is growing as well. So we're using our DIBELS program to not only group our MTSS kids, but also to check on them every other week and once a month in comprehension to see if they're making progress. So it's fabulous. I mean, it's a great screener. It's really neat to kind of watch the kids grow. I was looking at some of our students on Friday, I guess it was, and watching they have an aim line. So the aim line is where they should be following, to gain that. And it's just neat to see them going up the line. It really is a great program. Like I said, we just started doing the math, so I've been putting the math scores in. I haven't had them all filled in yet though, but I will have that ready for you guys on Friday, so you can actually see a school-wide math and a school-wide reading. Under assessment also, our winter Keystones, just so you know, we did meet last week, December 2nd and 3rd. Our 11th grade students will be taking the Bio Keystone because they missed it last school year. On December 7th and 8th, any student who completed Algebra 1 last year will be taking the Algebra test. And then January 6th and 7th, our 11th grade students will be taking literature, which is what they always do. They've always taken, well, not always, but last year they've taken the literature test in January. So that's kind of normal. Our spring Keystone, or our spring PSSA exams, the ELA, the dates are April 19th to 23rd. Math and sciences, that should be the 26th, I apologize. The 26th to the 30th, and then makeups are in May. What we basically are doing is any student in grade 3 through 6 will complete it paper pencil, so the booklets. Any students in 7th and 8th will complete it online through their computers, and all the Keystones will be done online. And then our spring Keystone is May 17th to 28th. We don't really pick dates for the PSSAs or the spring Keystones until it gets a little bit closer. One of the other things I wanted to talk about quickly is our Title I. I have all the numbers for Title I. We have 2 Title I teachers, as you know. So in kindergarten, we have 90 students. 13 of them are going to Title I, which is 14%. In grade 1, we have 78 students. 32 of them are going to Title I, which is 41%. And that's the grade I'm most concerned with. And you'll see that when I send you the DIBELS report itself. Our grade 1 had a lot of strategic and intensive students. So we're really going to work hard with grade 1 to try to build them up and get their reading skills a little bit more advanced than where they are right now. In 2nd grade, we have 87 students. In 3rd grade, we have 88, 10, which is 11%. And then our 4th grade has the lowest amount. We have 104 students and only 9 of them are going, which is 9%. So at a total of 447 students in grades K through 4, 81 of them are going, which is about 18%. Again, we only have 2 Title I teachers. Their day is completely packed. They have it all scheduled out. It's great. They even do some online ones with some of our students who are at home. But again, 1st grade is my biggest concern right now because literally almost half of them are going to Title I and receiving Title I services. So I'm really worried about our first grade students. So that's one of them that we're really going to stress and kind of stay on top of. Just so you know, homeless, we have 8 students that are classified as homeless this school year so far. And the McKinney-Vento Homeless Act basically tells what, you know, homeless children and youth are. They lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. A lot of our students are doubled up, which means they're living with another family, mostly like grandparents, that kind of thing. So they're not, you know, and I tell our teachers at the beginning of the school year, homeless doesn't mean you're in a box on the sidewalk. It just means that you don't have that fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. So we have 8 students in the district that are classified as homeless. We actually this year have 2 students that are classified as EL, or English language learners. They were both screened through the WIDA. They both do qualify for services, and currently we're working to find an EL person to work with the students. We do not have any employee that is EL certified in the district, nor who has the coursework for the EL certification. So we're working on trying to figure that out. We do have some leads. I talked to Kim Cardamona at Bloom U. She had some things she was going to check on tonight and give me a buzz back tomorrow, but we are working on getting those students some EL services as soon as and as quickly as we possibly can. The last thing I just wanted to review with you, and I know I'm running out of time quickly, is these were the last couple of the purchases that the curriculum department made. We did buy kindergarten writers' work notebooks for the students. We bought an organizer for the office, for the CIA office. We did purchase Discovery Ed. That's a program that a lot of our social studies teachers use. A lot of really neat videos in there. We did purchase a K-5 technology curriculum for Mrs. Madera to use in her tech classes. And we did just recently purchase Study Island for our 4th grade students. And I was actually in Mrs. Hockenbrock's class last week or the week before, and they were just logging on to Study Island and kind of looking at it. They saw the little crab thing on the island. They were very excited. So it seemed like they were excited to have access to Study Island. It's a really good program to practice for PSSA exams. We do have Study Island in the middle and the high school, so we did move it down to 4th grade just this year. As far as purchases that won't be paid till like mid to the end of the school year, the DIBELs for the ELA, the screeners and the progress monitoring, is going to be about $450. It's $1 per student, and the math is about $2 per student. But that we don't pay up front. That we pay partway through and then again at the end. And it depends on how many students we actually have in there. So I'm actually going through and cleaning out which students didn't come to school, or which students are cyber that we're not using the licenses for those students, so we can kind of pull them out of the system. And that's all I have. Did you guys have any questions for me?
Hey, Steph.
Yeah.
Back to the 1st grade.
Yes.
One and the DIBEL score.
Yes.
You're right. I was extremely concerned when I saw these numbers a few weeks ago, and I've had several 1st grade parents reach out who are concerned whose students in Type 1. I think we all understand that there was a really important part of kindergarten missed for these kids, where they're really kind of starting to hit their stride and their reading or pre-reading skills, and unfortunately that was lost because of COVID, and there's always a summer slip. Right. How are our numbers comparative to other districts? Do you know that? I think that it would be valuable, if you don't, to reach out to surrounding districts who have done this screening to understand, you know, is this what it is just looking like for these rising kindergartners, or is there something here that we need to look at? Do you have any insight into what these numbers actually mean beyond I
don't know. This obviously DIBELs is not public knowledge like Keystones and PSSAs are, but I can reach out and ask if anybody's willing to just at least give me that, like, hey, is everybody seeing these low? I personally would believe that it's not just us. And I do know, you know, even though we somewhat shut down, you know, March 13th, I mean, our teachers were still teaching lessons. They still were getting instruction out. And again, it's not the same as having a teacher standing in front of you, you know, each day. But they did do a lot. You know, I know that, and I'll give them credit for a lot that they did under really obscure, crazy circumstances. But I will reach out. We have a curriculum meeting, I think, coming up next week. So I'll kind of ask Jen if she will put that on the agenda, just to kind of see where everybody else is at. But I can imagine that we're all probably in the same boat. I do know, you know, at our curriculum meetings, a lot of people are like, I can't believe we're still doing Keystones. I can't believe we're planning to do PSSAs, because again, people feel like, you know, students are behind. So I do know that conversation has occurred. So I'm assuming that we're all probably in the same boat.
Sure, I agree. I just thought it would be, you know, interesting, and it would help give us some insight into.
Yeah, I will do that. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to stop sharing my screen then, Mr. Becker.
Okay.
Did it work?
Yep.
Okay.
Are we ready to get started, or do we need a break?
Ready to need a break?
Are there any public comments?
Mr. Davis, are there any public comments?
Mr. Becker, at this point, there are no public comments.
We're good?
Let me share my screen first.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
Flag, United States of America, with stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our October 19th virtual school board meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Cindy Brassington. Present. Drew Hampton.
Here.
Josh Hoagland.
Here.
Greg Clevon. Greg Clevon. Brianna Majeski.
Present.
Josh Majeski.
Here.
Tony Serafini.
Here.
Tim Vogt.
Here.
Eli Emso.
Here.
8 members present.
All right, well, let's go right to the superintendent's report. We'll come back to the agenda hearing period. That way, if we get any comments, we won't sit here and wait for them.
Okay. Couple things on the agenda tonight for us to talk about. First thing is,
I'm here. I'm sorry, I was muted. This is Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Sorry. You couldn't find the button.
looking at the travel restrictions that we've had at the school and looking at revising them. And mainly because the DOH is only recommending any kind of travel restrictions when they go to hotspots. We've had some families that we've had to quarantine that may have gone to a state where it was hotspot. They, may have abided by, social distancing, wearing masks, staying away from crowded places, but yet we had to, quarantine these people for 14 days when they returned. Now, we have a great asset in SOCO Live to be able to do that, but we're looking at possibly revising the plan to let people come back to school if they follow certain guidelines. And they would be, wear a mask, avoid close contact, avoid crowded spaces, wash hands often or use hand sanitizer, avoid contact with anyone who's sick, avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Just, good social habits. And again, we're recommending all non-essential travel to be canceled, not to go. But if you have to travel, we're asking you to be socially conscious and understanding that any kind of negative behaviors that you might do on vacation could affect our in-person instruction. And we know that's vital. We just talked about the curriculum. We had a curriculum meeting, and the importance of being in person is something we need to do as much as we can. So again, by following the recommendations, having these recommendations, these guidelines, and it's thought that maybe we can allow people to come back if they're asymptomatic, not having any symptoms, and have followed our guidelines. Any discussion?
Carl on,
Carl is on.
can we get his opinion on?
Carl, can you and I talked about this the other day. Can you chime in here?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, this is an issue that's cropped up again. Keep in mind, this is a recommendation. It's not a mandate. It's not an order. So in the scheme of things, we know in a lot of instances that the nature of the instruction is going to be, for lack of a better term, better in person than it is going to be virtual or cyber or in some other manner. And I believe people can be responsible, and parents are capable of doing rapid tests or other tests to show that their children have not been exposed. And most schools that we represent have not put any type of mandatory quarantining in place. I mean, that's all I can tell you what other schools are doing, and it's not a mandate, it's not an order, it's a recommendation.
Thank you, Carl. Any questions?
How are we, or how would we enforce this anyway? How do we know if people are traveling now that they're so alive and they don't have to tell us?
Well, again, we don't 100%, but our parents have been good letting us know. They were filling out educational travel forms. So our parents have been cooperative in working with us, letting us know when they're going to these places. So we're hoping that continues, but you're right, Josh, that they could just be absent and be on SOCO Live, and we would not know. But we're hoping our parents have been working with us and been cooperative, and we're hoping that continues.
So if we move to recommendation only, what does the district expect people to do in the best case? Isolate or not?
Well, I guess if they didn't follow, if they weren't following the guidelines, we'd ask them to isolate. And again, we can recommend they isolate, but I guess if they come back and say, you know, we went to North Carolina, we stayed in a house, we, you know, didn't go out to restaurants, or we didn't go out to crowded spaces. We're on the beach, we stayed in our house, and then, you know, we'd ask to possibly have them come back.
I feel like we're going to send a very mixed message at best on what the expectation is. So if we move to this is a recommendation rather than, you know, the direction of the district or a mandate from the district, whatever we're calling it as it stands right now, I think we need to make sure that we are clear in what our expectation is, right? Like, so we're saying if we move to recommendation, we really just can't enforce it and say you have to stay home, or would we in some cases still direct people to stay home if they're asymptomatic but clear risk factors exist? Where would what would the expectation be for so the family that goes and does go out to restaurants, goes to parties, goes to places and knowingly doesn't wear masks, and comes back and says, I didn't wear a mask, I went to crowded places, we went to parties in a high-risk area. What is the district's response to that if they're asymptomatic? Is it okay for them to come to school as long as they're masked and continue to social distance, or not? And I'm not saying one way or the other is correct. I'm just asking what is going to be the policy so there's no confusion amongst staff, parents?
Well, I would think if parents were honest with us enough and tell us this is exactly what we did and we exposed ourselves into possible some dangers, then we'd ask them to quarantine for 15 or 14 days.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if they said, hey, we abide by all your rules and we stayed away from people, we were just spent the week in North Carolina on the beach.
So you're looking at it more as a case-by-case basis?
Well, I guess we can, because we don't have, Bree asked me earlier today, how many people have we had out on trips? It's probably a half dozen or so. You know, it's not many. Now, as we get closer to Thanksgiving, we might have some travel, see some parents or grandparents, that type of thing. So I know if we have staff members that travel, we'd have to try to find telework for them. Well, you know, most we can, if they were teaching, most we can, but there may be some instances where we can't.
As I'm looking at the tally of new cases per day, it struck me as odd. We're number 7 so far today. We're number 15. Say we got some 34 states, I think, on the self-quarantine, and we're higher than most of them cases even per capita. There was a time when, you know, a lot of these states were like in the single digits or tens or hundreds. It seems like pretty well the whole country's in the, there's 18 above 1,000 cases a day yesterday. So it seems odd to me that we're making them self-quarantine when the case rates in the places they're going are the exact same as where they live.
I'm not necessarily arguing in favor or against it. I'm saying whatever we do, what is the district policy going to be? And so then when we have the parent or the staff member who travels, is honest with us, tells us they were in high-risk environments, and we recommend that they quarantine, and they say no, what do we expect to have any recourse there, or is it just going to be a recommendation and it's their choice?
I think that is the question that it comes down to. I think that, you know, the desire overwhelmingly from the district would be that people would choose to follow DOH recommendation in quarantine. You know, we've made clear as a community that it is important to us to have in-person education, and we all take personal responsibility for what we do outside of school when we come back into the building. Kids are involved in extracurricular activities and things like that. So I think the hope would still be that people would choose to quarantine. I just think we need to understand, can we enforce it? And if we can't enforce it, then how do we require it? And if we are going to be able to enforce it and require it, then I think we just need to make clear to families that despite the flexibility afforded to us from SOCO Live, if you're going to be traveling to any of these hotspot places, even if you are engaging in synchronous or asynchronous learning online, you need to fill out an educational field trip form, not for the purpose of, you know, excusing your absences if you're still participating with school, but for the purposes of understanding if you should be quarantining so that all things are held equal. I think that's the question, and that's where I agree. It comes down to, you know, what can we enforce at the end of the day?
Making the rules objective as possible, and making it say 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the things they have to meet or whatever. I'm not exactly sure on how to do that, but unless you're just going to say a recommendation.
And Carl, like no schools are, from your understanding, most aren't enforcing this. What are the other schools doing? I know you said the recommendation, but in actual practice, what does that look like for them?
Well, a lot of them rely on parents and kids to do the right thing. The reality of it is this is going to be to a point when at one time the Department of Health made a comment about masks, and first they're required, first they're not required, and then they realized, well, that was a major mistake, and then they indicated that students, unless they had a medical condition, had to wear them. I'm just saying I'm aware of 2 districts of ours that have followed the mandates, and parents are absolutely refusing. They're going to send their kids to school. They're going to force the issue of what the district's going to do. And I indicated to them, as much as they probably don't want to hear it, this is going to be a difficult one to enforce. What are you going to do? You're going to put the kid out on suspension. In those districts, though, perhaps unlike yours, the delivery of the virtual education is not of the same quality as you are providing. And therefore, parents are having a real hard time with only getting packets and not any continuity of education. So they're going to press it tomorrow. There's a board meeting tonight. I'll probably read about it in the newspaper tomorrow, and after a scene is created at the school tomorrow morning. But it's virtually impossible to enforce.
There's the answer. Just its recommendation.
So then I think the important thing for us to just say is that just a reminder to everybody that everything all of us do outside of the school, can either decrease or increase our risk within our school and affect our ability to have in-person learning. We've been really, really fortunate. We've only had one case that we know of, and that was a staff member. And, I'd like to commend that staff member. They did everything they were supposed to. And as a result of that, we did not miss any educational time in person. Eventually, our luck is going to run out. That's just the nature of what we're dealing with. But, just reminding people that we all have a part in getting what we want, which is in-person education.
I think we can send that message home when they come for a trip request form, and then also attach this form to it, or have it on the back of it, talking about what we're hoping they do if they're deciding to travel.
And we're still asking them to fill out
Yes.
trip forms, even if they're.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, second thing on the agenda, our employment interest forms, surveys have been going well. We have 41 total filled out. Teresa's been great on top of those things and getting every person who filled out an interest form an application packet. We started getting some of the application packets back. We have a couple people on the substitute list to be approved tonight. Also, we hoping to have you approve me that I can hire temporarily until the next meeting. Any substitutes get their packets in, we can vet them, interview them, make sure everything's good, and get them on. We were talking about earlier about getting time. This is where we can probably get groups of substitutes and put them into a grade level and give those grade level teachers some time. Yes, we are still looking for, again, substitute teachers, substitute paraprofessionals, custodial, and maintenance. We're still looking for a maintenance person. Those applications are still being collected. And then any volunteer. So if you're interested, please go to our website under employment, and there's a quick survey, really quick to fill it out, and show us what you're interested in. So we would appreciate anyone who wants to be part of our team. Future meetings. We're looking at, I was talking to President Vogt, and he's talking about possibly doing in-person meetings. Now, what would that mean is we'd have board members here. Now, we still have the possibility of virtual if a board member doesn't feel comfortable or not feeling well, we'll ask them to stay home. But we're open, we'd like to possibly open it up to the public. But knowing that, we still have the virtual option for the public, so they can stay at home and listen to it on their computer, on YouTube. And then, so we're hoping we can, and we don't need a vote on that, but we have a consensus that we, can open it back up. That would be great. On December 2nd, we're supposed to have our reorganization meeting. Those of you guys were on the board last year, we had a dinner prior to our reorganization meeting. Are we interested in doing that? That would take a little bit of planning, even though it's a good little thing, a little camaraderie. We can still space out, possibly in one of the cafeterias or somewhere. We find a space. We usually go through a local restaurant to cater it, and it's a good time. Then we have a reorganization meeting, December 2nd. So we okay with having a little dinner prior? Okay, awesome.
And we just chip in ourselves to cover
Yeah,
that?
that's what we do. Usually everybody throws in a couple of bucks, and if we're all kind to Teresa, she usually makes a pie or two.
Yeah, the newest number is you pick up the tab and the stuff they've been teaching.
That's Eli's got that covered.
Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is possible calendar revision. And we're constantly looking for things to improve on, and I know we're looking for time. Before we got into COVID, we approved a calendar that we had the Friday affair off, and the Thursday affair was a non-instructional day. We moved that non-instructional day up to the beginning of the year, where we have 4 there. A couple things we need to do here before the winter. Essentially, one, we are approved for 5 flexible instructional days. So we're looking at possibly getting some time. So me administratively, and I actually was talking to Josh Hogan last week, so I'll give him a little bit of credit. We had an Act 80 day for January 18th. So looking at this, we're thinking maybe move that 18th up closer into November, the beginning of November. We'd make that January 18th a day off to recognize Martin Luther King Day. And then I would only put our last day on a Friday, the 29th of May. So we're actually, I think it's the 29th of May. We're actually out before Memorial Day still. Possible agenda items for that day. Big one is prepared for flexible instructional days. Now, I think we are well ahead of the game as we were last year. That's why I'm not thinking we need too much time, but I also want to put out what we want to do, make sure we're following all the guidelines with these flexible instructional days, and we're ready with them, because that could be, the first snow day we have, I'd like to call a flexible instructional day. Other big thing we'd like to get moving on is our positive action program. And our positive action program is our social emotional learning program that we've implemented, and we want to have more of a kickoff and gives teachers some time and again, some training to really get going with that. Talked with Mr. Davis. There's always technology trainings we could do. At the end of the marking period, 10/27, right around that November 2nd day will be a day when we'll be finalizing grades. That's a thing. And then, we talked about some planning time, and Mrs. Zigmont was talking about interreading, some Edgenuity, some grade level teams, and maybe department for some planning. Now, we looked at that day, and administratively, we thought it would better serve us school-wide if we moved it up to November instead of sitting back in January, for a number of reasons. Again, number 1, number 2 being the biggest ones. Any questions or comments?
That give the teachers lots of just free planning time as they see fit.
Well, it wouldn't be free planning time. We would be doing flexible instructional planning, and then I would probably meet with them virtually, go over all the, what we're going to be doing, what's expected of them. And then the positive action training, we would get Ms. Sigmont, Ms. Snyder, Ms. Novak involved with that. And then there would be technology trainings. Mr. Davis has already talked about a number of things that he would make available for those, and then there would be some planning time. We build that in towards the end.
I would just like to ask that if our general idea behind moving the day up were to provide teachers with the additional time to plan and prepare to meet their concerns, that we honored their request and didn't load, the bulk of the day up with pre-scheduled things that, although are very important, might not be as important at that given moment as possibly the additional planning time would be. So if there's a way to make, maybe not mandate certain things, just make them available to them, or provide open office hours for technology support, rather than saying, we're doing a Teams training mandatory from this time to this time. I think that might be a better approach.
Mm-hmm. The biggest things that I think I would concern me, Ms. Sigmont and Mrs. Snyder and the principals would be getting ready for that flexible instructional day, and also kicking off that positive action program.
The preparation for the FID day, is that something intensive that the teachers are interacting with other people, or is that team planning time with just your desire is that at the end of that period of time, they have their 5 FID days planned?
I think if not all 5, a good chunk of them, they would have an idea of definitely what we're doing on the first day, second day. We still have to, keep in mind there may be some kids out there that may have to do asynchronous or that type of thing, but the plan is to be as synchronous as possible on those FID days.
So the FID days really could just ultimately end up looking like any other day.
It could look like a virtual day, exactly. Now, my plan is even on snow days, I've already talked to Scott, we're gonna have the front of the high school plowed out, so if a teacher needs to come use their room, we're welcome them. I'll be here, people will be here, so we can, if you need it to be in your classroom, or you need the internet service or something, you can still get here and do that. We've had school closures for, cold weather, different occasions where we were still able to get here pretty safely. I just, we'll have that front of the high school. That's where we'll want everybody to park. So just little things to, get ready for those days.
Just to clarify, because I'm a little confused now. So the FID days, are they going to be like last year where kids get packets and teachers are available via email if you have questions, or teachers expected to be providing instruction during that time?
No, we're going to expect instruction. I mean, I don't think there's any reason why we can't. Last year, I don't think we were as prepared for what we've been doing. We've grown tremendously. I don't see why there isn't a reason why we can't have synchronous live learning during these days. Now, again, we've had some virtual days in the past. I'm thinking it could be like that. They could be on for a period of time for reading, on for a period of time for math, on for a period of time for their social studies, that type of thing. So we're looking for synchronous, and then yes, absolutely being available, not only for email, but being available to teams with a student if needed.
So I see how that would work, like for cold weather and things like that, where teachers aren't waiting for a bus outside. But is it clear where the line is drawn, where we expect them to be in their classroom teaching, or are they going to be teaching from home if they are uncomfortable traveling here? How are we going to?
Well, those are a couple things we're talking about. I'm okay if they're teaching from home, if they, again, have the internet service and everything that they have available, that they can provide a quality education for the day.
So
that's what's going to be important.
Can we get any teachers that would need a mobile hotspot like we do for students?
And we have done that. We have done that in one occasion. We had to quarantine a teacher and gave them a hotspot. So that's a possibility. And Mr. Davis, I still think we do have a couple hotspots that we can share with staff if staff need it, correct?
That's correct. That is correct. And I actually, just if you're going to give me a second, I actually agree with Mr. Serafini too. I'm at a point right now where I feel pretty comfortable with what we've given the teachers. I actually feel like we're in a pause right now, that we maybe just give the teachers some time to digest technology-wise, a chance to review everything we've given to them to go over. So just to kind of piggyback what Mr. Serafini said, it may be, looking back in this, may be of best interest just to have open office hours for us to, be available if a teacher needs help.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't advocate for taking time away to have technology 8 weeks in at this point.
Mrs. Majeski, you're real light. I don't know if you could say that again and speak up.
I said I agree with that. I can't say that I would be supportive of taking teacher time away for technology training being that we're 9 weeks into this, I mean, everyone obviously has some level of comfort of what's going on if concerns haven't been raised with you or the administration. So if there are common recurring themes that you think people need additional resources for, I agree with providing them those resources, that maybe this is time they can use to review them, but I would say, you know, we're trying to get them some collaborative planning time, and that should be our priority to maximize that.
I think we're at the phase where the staff is like fine tuning their technology skills. I don't think at this point it would be wise to give them anything brand new. I think they need to just fine tune everything we've thrown at them since March. And so I just wanted to throw that comment in there.
Any other discussion? Okay, EL services, as Mrs. Sigmont spoke about in the curriculum meeting, we had a person lined up to do that, and now it's unavailable. So again, under the motion with the substitutes, if we can get the EL person, I would like to temporarily hire them as well. So, and as Mrs. Sigmont said, it happened today that we lost the person we thought we were going to have, but we also have made strides in finding someone else. So we're hoping that happens in the coming days. There will be a brief executive session following the meeting for litigation and personnel purposes. That's all I have, Mr. Vogt. If any board member has any questions or concerns.
Anybody have anything else, Mr. Becker?
On the substitute hiring, what is the expected timeline, I guess, for when we will start to see an impact potentially in classrooms, getting teachers planning time from that?
Well, it could happen soon because we're going to hire a couple today. And then we're going to work tomorrow, administrative meeting tomorrow, that we're going to be talking about this very topic, about trying to cluster groups of people when we can do this. As soon as we get application packets back and clearances and all that passed, we can hire them and again, bring them as part of that pool. Now, we do have some substitutes now. Adding 2 more, you know, is going to help us to at least begin what you're talking about, Josh, giving them some of that planning time.
And on the same note, so the idea was, you know, we kind of came up with the idea at the last board meeting and put it into action all in the same meeting. Have you gotten any feedback from staff on whether they think this is a viable path to getting the planning time that they're asking for, or?
I haven't gotten great feedback from them, but what I think they're looking for is groups, especially for the reading, they're looking for time, but elementary I know is looking for time for groups of them, if not a whole grade level, that they could meet. Now, if we can get 5 subs together and put it in for a day, use half a day for kindergarten, half a day for 1st grade. So for one day, we just gave 2 grade levels a good amount of time to be together and plan collaboratively. So that's the type of thing we're looking at doing. Now, if we can't get 5 and we get 3, then we'll go 3 and 2.
But, I mean, that's definitely what we had talked about at the last meeting, and it makes sense to me. But are you saying the staff is not on board with that idea, or
No, I think the only feedback that I got is they were hoping to get us groups. They would appreciate individual time, but they're looking at groups, especially in the elementary. Middle school, high school, they're looking for, and I think we can do that. If we get enough people, we can reach out and reach up into the middle school, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Help out with some of the individual high school teachers that have multiple prep periods to aid some of that time. You know, we're hiring a substitute who has an elementary background tonight, and another one who went through the guest teacher program at the IU. So, I think both good kids that I remember had come up through school. So I think, you know, we're on the right track, and having at least 40 interested, 41. I mean, that's a good start. So hopefully in the next coming days, we'll get application packets, and if we start not getting them, we'll start reaching back out and calling them. I know Teresa's contacted these people through email or phone calls and talked to many.
Applications are starting to come in.
Principals have been out talking with the teachers and getting feedback for your meeting tomorrow, going from what Josh is saying, to have a good feedback of what they want. So that way we can make them as happy as possible for their time frames to make sure if it is the 3, trying to get that day instead of spacing it out, trying to get that and schedule it that way. I assume that the principals have been talking with the staff.
Yeah, and in fact, we have a meeting set up. Mr. Gangler and I were talking today, so we have a meeting set up with, it's going to be myself, Mr. Gangler, and it'll be probably maybe 10 or so teachers with the administration, representatives from different grade levels, that type of stuff. So to get that very input of how.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, we're having that on Thursday at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Has there been any progress made in trying to get some of that morning before class time back by figuring out additional large group areas to keep them out of the room?
Yeah, we're looking at that, Josh, and every time we're trying to come up with an idea, we run into a couple of roadblocks. All of our people that we have in the morning, they're busy doing duties. We're looking at different teachers, different aides who may not have classrooms, but some of those people are taking temps as they come in, and or watching people come in as they come in during the day. So that's not a dead issue, but we're running into some. We were able to push back 10 minutes, so we're letting the people in the cafeteria stay there till 7:45 on the bus. That's when the bus is empty too. One of the biggest issues we're running into is we probably could do a grade level each day in the elementary school. The problem would be is to corral every first grader off the bus and off the parents and keep them or send them to one location where the others are going back. You would need people just to do that, plus the people that are watching the kids in the location. So we're trying to, figure out the logistics of doing that. It's not dead in the water, but it just seems like we're running into some roadblocks with that.
And the planning time they lost in the morning is specifically related to we extended the before school drop-off hours?
Not specifically. What it is we used to corral all the kids in cafeterias, large group areas, in the gym prior, and then at 8:05, 8 o'clock in the high school secondary building, 8:05 in the elementary building, and then release them. So we're not grouping those kids anymore. I know in this building, the cafeteria would get packed by 8 o'clock. It used to be 8:05, and I said, now let's go to 8 o'clock and cut that by 5 minutes just to release some of the pressure from the cafeteria. But, most of the time, all our buses are unloaded by 8 o'clock, and all the kids are here on campus. So 8 o'clock seems to be a time where everybody's there. But, we're going to look at all the aspects, and we're thinking the substitute thing, we're hoping, is part of our answer.
Is there any way to change school bus pickup times to move them back 10 or 15 minutes so that kids are arriving at time?
That's something else we can look at. I can talk to Christy about pushing that back.
How many kids are riding? What are kids riding the bus predominantly?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, we still have a good number of kids riding the bus.
Would that impact their ability to get breakfast? They would still be able to get their breakfast on.
Well, they're eating in the classroom.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's kind of like grab and go type of breakfast.
I'm worried about changing pickup time.
Yeah.
I think that would be detrimental to parents. I mean, that's changing schedules.
Pick up at the regular time and just drive around for extra 20 minutes before you drop them off.
Because, especially since we're already 2 over 2 months into it, that they already have a schedule and a way that they're doing things. You switch that up.
So the substitutes really are the best answer that we can come up with for all of us, right?
Yeah, right now. And then again, like we talked about last month, that we're going to exhaust all options. We're going to look and see if we can't give a grade level each day, a different grade level each day, give them that half hour. Anytime given them, I'm sure was appreciated. So we'll see what we can do.
I just look at this as it's probably an issue beyond just the fall here. It probably is going to stretch into the spring. So finding a sustainable solution through substitutes to relieve the teachers, to get them the planning time they need.
Mr. Becker, if you have people who are willing to commit, some things that I found success with is just saying, listen, I will take you every day from now until the end of the school year. And basically don't worry about waiting for the phone call in the morning. Just know you're going to be somewhere within our district on that day.
I agree, scheduling out.
Yeah, and I've scheduled
giving
people
a heads up, and I think that's something that.
Yep, if we can get them, we'll get a long-term schedule.
Yep, and I've also had some success with saying, a lot of people, maybe they can't get there right at 7:30 or whatever that you need them in, and just knowing that we're willing and able to be flexible with people. We understand that everybody has a certain set of circumstances that they have to live by, and just communicating that with them when they come on. Sometimes that's helped out too.
And Denise and I have also looked at what it would cost to increase a little bit of the substitute salary, especially substitute para salary. We also look at custodians, we look at maintenance. I'm not sure if we're ready to make a great recommendation right now, but absolutely, probably by next month, we'll have something that we can put out there and say, this is what it's going to cost us to just make it more attractive. But we did do a comparison, and we're probably in the lower for substitute teachers, but we're still in the ballpark. We're not, there's others that are right around us too. There's some that are more, but we're still right around the ballpark.
I wholeheartedly agree with what Tony said. If you find somebody who's interested, if we don't give them something that they can rely on, then when some other district or some other opportunity that is sustainable comes along, we're going to lose them.
Right.
If we find quality applicants, it's clear that we could use extra bodies and extra time all over the place here, as long as they're flexible with what they want to do. And then teachers know, once we have this kind of cohort of subs, teachers can say, okay, I understand that this is how this is going to impact me. I'm going to have X time for collaborative planning. And the admin can say, okay, do you guys want to maximize collaborative planning time? Or if there's an option where you get maybe a little bit less collaborative planning time, but you get some individual planning time, what is your priority? Where do your priorities lie? So we can try and honor what they're looking for to the best of our ability. But teachers understand how their schedule is going to look. They understand what their planning time is going to look like consistently, through the end of the semester and beyond. This is going to be an issue probably through the end of the school year, if not the third marking period. And then we have reliable workers who are plugged in. The kids get to know them. I think it's a good situation for everybody.
Yeah. So my question of the timeline was basically
how quickly
if not just how quickly can you implement, because we would like to implement as quickly as possible. But is there it's been too long and we need to do something else to give planning time, right? Are we going to be able to implement it quickly enough that we don't need to consider another half day or early dismissal, or is that a conversation we should be having now?
I think we should be having it, just because you're at the mercy of a lot of different factors when it comes to bringing someone on board quickly. What's our thought on, I'm seeing that we still have the parent-teacher conferences, the Act 80s for the 23rd and the 24th. Is that something that we would entertain, losing one of those and bumping it to a different date?
We could possibly do that, but I know kindergarten through about 7th grade get pretty booked up with their parent-teacher conferences. So they're those days are busy for, at least I know those grades. As you get up 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, high school, not as much. We always in high school had some professional development that we did during those days. We would get trained for Keystone exams and certain things like that. So we'd use some of that time more valuable.
So our next meeting was the 16th of November, I think.
Yep.
The 16th of November, and the 2nd is we're looking at the Act 80 day of November. Okay. November 2nd is, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So can we say that you think that from in the past, vetting people is a month acceptable to be able to say, okay, we should have something in place by the 16th? Because if not, we may have to look at another 2-hour delay or something else before that 16th. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know how long it usually takes. Is a month long enough? Or should we be looking at before we get to the 16th and all of a sudden, okay, this is going to take another 2 months, like what Josh is at? I think this is what Josh is asking.
I'm asking even shorter term, like, do we have enough planning time built in between now and whenever we have?
Now, the second,
It's
it's 2
either
weeks.
this November 2nd. Because the original request was for something every week, right? That was for a half day or an entire day off every, a planning day, a Wednesday, virtual day, out of school. Which isn't sustainable by any means from all the discussion we already had. It's just, if we're bridging to get to somewhere, do we need to do a half day or something between now and then? Or are we confident that we'll have enough people on board to at least start implementing some of this?
Well, we could try. The only problem with the subs we have, like we're adding to, and we add as we go. If we set something up, say we have 3 subs coming in and trying to set something up, if we have a sub shortage that day, we might have to pull them from that group. So that has happened. I know Mrs. Zigmont has done some professional development planning, and we had to pull teachers out and put them back in the classroom. So you could have some of that, but we're hoping to get a number of subs. Now I just got a message from a teacher, and he asked me to let you know that just having subs is still a lot of work on their end that they have to prep for the sub day.
So that's on the administration, because I thought I made it clear that it'd be great if we had, for a sub day, if we kept saying we could have instruction if possible, but my goal is just get the teacher out of the classroom for that period of time for planning. So there is no structured instruction if that is, like, so it shouldn't be an additional burden for them to prepare. The whole idea is to relieve the teacher for that period of time, not create additional work for them that they have to then figure out how to plan for. Because the alternative is we don't have school and the kids aren't even in the building. So why would are we pushing for during that relief period, whatever we're calling it, that instruction would continue? Or is it just going to be like, sit here and watch a video, or sit here and right?
I'm just saying, I think, you're gonna have your students here. You can't just do nothing with them.
Why can we not put on a movie for 2 hours? I don't know, we do it, we watch movies in all grades. So
the alternative is
the kid is not even in the building and not getting instruction because the teachers need planning time at home.
And I'm sorry, I'm thinking that you're talking about a full day?
No.
Just
relief planning period.
Like the half hour.
Whatever it is, 2 hours, if it's a block of 2 hours or a half, however it is going to be structured once we have the subs, right? The idea would be the teacher doesn't have to prepare anything significant for that period of time. The substitute para or the substitute teacher in the classroom is there solely to watch the children for that period of time while the teachers go and do what they would do if the kids weren't in the building, whatever that is, that planning period of time. So it's not intended to be the substitute comes in and continues the lesson as normal, because there wouldn't be a lesson if we weren't doing this. We were going to send everybody home and not have an instructional period then. So it is find something, whether that's board games or whatever we can do in the COVID era. You can't play board games, I guess, but that's why sit here and watch a movie makes sense. Like, pick a good movie, right? Like something that is educational, but the idea of watching a movie for 2 hours won't be that foreign to any student in any grade level.
So you're minimizing educational expectations.
Yeah, right. It is the entire purpose of that period is to have the children in the building so that parents can go to work, but teachers are relieved from instruction for that period of time to do the planning that they're asking for. It is It is to try and bring together the two big requests or the two big challenges that we have. The need for planning time, which is reasonable, as a reasonable request from the teachers, given that we've asked them to duplicate their instruction and figure everything out for online learning. And the fact that parents have already largely exhausted or far exhausted their time off from the days that we've already been out of school and anticipate the need for more days off as we move forward. So put the kids in the classroom, but get the teachers out of the classroom for some period of time.
And again, it's not a whole day.
No, it'd be a defined short period of time. And then as frequently as we can do that with however many substitutes we get that makes sense from a planning standpoint, but.
And one other thing I would just like to add, as far as the substitutes go, I mean, on a daily basis, like what's your average number of people that you foresee being available or has historically been available in this district?
When you say substitutes?
Yeah, on any given day.
This year has drastically dropped. So are you talking about this year or in the past?
How about this year?
The elementary school, 3?
3 for
two, 3?
2 to 3.
Now we're getting another one today for the elementary.
And then, so are there times when there's elementary subs who are in the building and then they're pulled to fill in voids elsewhere throughout the district, like take an elementary sub and bring them over to the high school?
We don't have day-to-day subs, is what you're trying to say, day-to-day?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have any day-to-day that are here every day. We don't have any of those.
So I guess what I'm thinking is, let's just say we assemble this, what I'll call crew of substitutes, and we get 4 people to come in, and we communicate with the staff that these 4 people are going to be available to support them during planning time. I just want to make sure that for every which reason that surfaces across the district, we don't have, so-and-so's doing something training at the high school that day. Oh, we have a sub, go over to the elementary school, pull the sub that was put in place to provide the teachers with the planning time so that this person can attend the training.
We'd have to coordinate that.
Yeah, in the hierarchy of need, although I'm a major proponent for professional development, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and unfortunately, a lot of those things kind of have to take the back burner. Like, I know even on a daily basis, if I have a teacher who's committed to attend a training, and I say wholeheartedly from the beginning, you can go to that training, the main caveat that I communicate to them is, unless, of course, there's a sub shortage that day, and then in that case, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to go to that training. Because I think it's very important that if we're telling people that we're putting this together for them, as a support for them, that they don't think that they're getting it, and then we pull the rug out from underneath them for whatever reason surfaces somewhere else in the district. That's the big thing. I think if we're going to commit to it, we have to commit to it.
So, given the subs that we have in the elementary and the folks that are on here to be potentially hired tonight, can the administration tomorrow talk about how to use those individuals? I would assume any planned off time for people next week you would know about. Obviously, unplanned things can happen, but can you figure out how to get each grade level planning time next week with
I don't see why we can't.
existing subs?
I don't see why we can't.
Okay, first of all, one of these subs is going to need an emergency permit, so that's going to take some time.
Okay, so -1, can we?
And the guest teacher, I'm waiting for the guest teacher paperwork. They went through it, I think on the 8th, so I should have it hopefully this week. So I'm waiting on that.
So as soon as we get everything in, we'll get them in the rotation.
Realistically,
I was going to say, I think the other piece too is we are having our first meeting with the teachers union on Thursday. And I think at that meeting, rather than just doing a verbal survey with like the principals have been doing with the staff, we'll have a better idea of the blocks of time that each group, will come to us and say, we need like collaborative time as a team, we need individual time. I think that meeting is going to give us a lot more information moving forward, so we know how to actually plan that time.
so back to what we were discussing. Realistically, this isn't gonna happen for next week, most likely. Realistically, it would be great that it would, but realistically, you know, we have emergency certs, you know, different things like that. Most likely, realistically, in the real world, it's not gonna happen for next week. Do we want to have either an early dismissal or something like that for next week?
I mean, some of these are educational majors, so Jim can do a local emergency permit. So that's not.
It is reasonable to think that we might be able to get
It's
this in place for next week.
we could get some in place.
If we were able to get all the paperwork gets done, it can be almost automatic. And they're available. That's the other thing, you know.
And I have been asking them when, you know, some are only available Wednesday, some are available 3 days a week, some are available 2 days a week. So we're gonna have to deal with their schedules also.
Have you guys started to build out like a matrix where you know who you have available so that when this goes through, we can just start plugging people in? So Thursday, we should get an idea of what the actual formal asks for, what would be most helpful. And then do we at least know where we can plug some of these folks in that we either are prepared to use next week or could be prepared to use by next week for these emergency permits? I mean, I just don't want to see us spinning our wheels planning. Once we understand Thursday what we're trying to do and we know what we have, I would like to see us try to get started next week. We might not be able to get to every grade level next week, but I'd like to see us try and do something next week.
Yeah, administratively, we're hoping to build that tomorrow. We talked about that last week, this week, you know, Steph and I were talking about it today, about getting this built for tomorrow. And as soon as we can use these people, again, we're proving them. So as soon as we can get them to make sure the clearances are in and they'll have all their certificates done,
Well,
we'll
you
get
want
them
to
in, we'll get
meet
them in play.
with some of these people before you, I mean.
Yeah,
we're
and then
not
we have
just-
to meet. Some
Just
of them-
because they apply, we're not gonna.
Some of them I want to see face to face.
There's still the expectation that
Right.
we do our diligence with who we're
Right.
putting in the classroom, unquestionable.
Right.
Expectation.
Jim, I know last time we were talking about this is most is in around elementary. You said there were still some planning time concerns in the middle and high school. Is it what we're talking about here? Does any of that help them, do you think? Obviously, again.
You know, I think if anything, it does leave out middle school and high school. Are we going to get enough subs to cover everybody? It's yet to be seen. I'm encouraged by 41 interest surveys. Are we going to get 41 subs? Probably not.
How many do we need?
The problem is the education majors can only sub in their area. So elementary is good because they can sub K to 4, K to 6, I guess, really, right?
Yeah, but we can get them certified as a day-to-day.
But like a high school English can sub in high school English.
Even if they're not teaching?
Or across the high school level. And you could get them day-to-day, so we could get them in the elementary, but we'll try to keep them in their grade level or their subject area grade level, that type of thing. But we use them across grade levels, across subject areas.
Sure. So do we know how many we need?
Well, you're looking at, in the elementary school, K to 5, there's 5 teachers each. So if you were going to.
They need 5 as a traveling block.
5 as a
We need
traveling
at least
block.
5 to make that work.
And if you did K to 4, that's 5 days, so then you would look at some kind of block for the middle school.
So K to 4, why is it 5 days? You have 5 teachers, you have 5 substitutes here for the whole day. Why can't you do?
Oh, you
2
could, we
grades a
could,
day?
2 grade levels, 3 grade levels a day.
Morning
Yeah, we
is
could.
kindergarten, afternoon is first grade, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
To roll through that.
Right.
Okay. So you need at least 5 for that block, and you could get kindergarten through 4th in 3 days.
3 days.
Right, you can, in a 3-day rotation.
You guys are having a meeting tomorrow, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, I
why
just
are
want to
we?
make sure you come out of the meeting with, here's the plan. Like I would have thought we already
Well,
figured out what we wanted.
we've talked about it, but we haven't got there yet because, again, we're still waiting on people, you know?
Right, but how many you need is kind of separate from how many you have, right? So how you're going to make it work, right, there's gonna eventually have to be, okay, here's what we have and here's how we can get close to what we wanted. But like we don't even know what we need for an ideal situation, it sounds like.
No, and I don't think to try to plan for 5 when you know you're probably not gonna get 5.
Well, we need,
Why would you?
Well, it doesn't even work if we don't have 5.
Yeah, it
need
does.
more
It
than
absolutely does. We're gonna work if it has 1. If we get one
Right.
teacher at some
But
time
we're
off.
saying that it doesn't because the elementary needs the collaborative time, right? So in that case, if we absolutely need 5, or are we saying we don't, right?
Well, that's the thing. We don't really know. We have to meet with we're meeting with the teachers this week as well. So
Okay.
if we don't get clusters, we'd have to come back and say, hey, we have to do something different. This substitute thing's not working. We have to do something different.
For the elementary specific.
For the elementary.
Right. And then
Singleton subs, we could probably use in the high school, possibly upper middle school.
So what would we be looking to do for the high school? Say we had an infinite number of substitutes, which we're not going to, but what would be the ideal, how much planning time does a high school teacher who is not teaching collaboratively, how much planning time per week do we need to free up for them? Are we talking 2 hours per week? Are we talking 4 hours a week or 2 hours every 2? Like,
I think that depends on how many preps that teacher
I was
has.
just gonna ask. The
And then,
number.
I
you know,
agree. So
so-
that's the question of why I'm saying it's not a just blanket number.
Right.
No, it's not. I think we'd have to look at the individual teacher, how many preps they have, and then we'd consider what time they lost in that morning.
Right.
5 half hours, so there's 2.5 hours.
When are we going to do that part of the process? Like this was 2 weeks ago. I thought that was already done. I'm surprised it's not done.
Yeah, I think both can be done. We can both look for our applicants and also both figure out, because what happens is we get our applicants, they're ready to go, but we don't have a plan in place to actually implement anything. So then we're stuck wasting time trying to do that. I think we should be figuring out what our ideal is, then also getting who we get, and then building that bridge when we get there.
Well, it sounds like one of the wrenches I got thrown in here is this meeting that was quite requested to be set up later this week, because we all gave Jim this idea, hey, let's go. I gave Jim this idea, or, was pretty vocal, get some pairs to free up time, and now we're getting some comments that, hey, maybe that's not how they want to do it. Come meet with us so we can tell you exactly what would help us best. And I don't know, it's sort of frustrating. We have our meeting tonight, but, they requested that meeting, and now it's going to happen after we met. Got a whole month to.
We can always have a special meeting on the 2nd for, like before the facilities and finance meeting as well, too, so.
Do we need a meeting to?
No, I think here's the thing. If we start getting substitutes, the important thing is, the substitutes. If we get the bodies that are able to put these groups of people together, how we do it should be fairly easy. For instance, if we have a singleton in a high school, we could say, okay, we're going to give you, Miss Stein, 2 periods, first and second period. Then you're going to go to Mr. Henry, third and fourth period, and have all that scheduled out. That wouldn't be hard to do for the singletons. Same with the groups. 2 hours for kindergarten, 2 hours for first grade, 2 hours for second grade, and then.
If we haven't already figured it all out, then this week when we have these conversations, that should definitely be part of the conversation with the intent of coming out with, here's what we would like to do, right? If we get the right people.
What time on Thursday is this meeting?
I'm supposed to meet with them 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, 3:05.
I mean, is it reasonable to ask the principals either for the Friday letter, or if they can't get it sorted out for the Friday letter at some point over the weekend, to add to the Friday letter what their building needs are based on the outcome of that conversation, and so we actually have a plan going into next week. So we actually have identified those needs and set a deadline to do that.
Okay. Yep.
Mr. Vogt, I do have 3 comments, and they are from employees. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought it might be interesting or to the point of what the current discussion is.
Fine.
Do you want me to read them, Mr. Vogt?
Well, are you guys done asking Jim questions now? Or
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Yeah, if you just want to do those 3, that's fine.
First one is from Pamela Rook, Locust Township. I appreciate your efforts in working towards getting the teachers' planning time. However, I need my room to prepare materials books, and station materials, files, and many other essentials that are a critical part of the planning in first grade. Removing the primary teachers from the room will not be of much help. Please meet with us and let us share our concerns and needs. Pam Marook.
So in response to that, would it be possible during that period that whoever is watching the kids takes them somewhere else? They go outside for an extra recess. They go to the library for an extra library period. They go to a large group area.
We could probably find
They
a
go on a
location.
walking tour of the building, masked and socially distanced. We get creative if we need to get the kids out of the classroom.
Along those lines, a large group area, you might be able to get 2 classes.
Yeah, exactly. You may be able to do all kinds of interesting things. It's just
like that.
like those would be those would be great conversations to have this week when we meet with the staff and figure this out. It's just right on the backdrop of we're doing everything we can to not send the kids home. So if the default response is going to be no, we just need to send the kids home because we need them out of the building, that's not a viable or sustainable solution, especially if this is going to stretch into the spring. It's just not going to work. So for the staff coming into these conversations, it'd be great if people come in with ideas and thoughts but the ideas kind of have to center around the kids are going to be in the building, or else it's a non-starter otherwise the way it looks right now. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Just to add to that, I mean, we've been trying to find some solution that works for parents and teachers. We're not trying to forsake one group or the other. So that's why we're trying to come up with something that keeps the students in the room and still help the teachers out.
Yeah.
Mr. Vogt, you want me to continue on with the next one?
Sure, go ahead.
The next comment is from Bianca Salter, Ralph Township. Is there any word on getting help with custodians? I know we're all running thin and we're all getting wore out. We have absolutely no help whatsoever. And now we're being told that if complaints keep coming in about rooms not being cleaned properly, we will be reprimanded. So that would put even more work onto my coworkers. I love working for Southern. I try to do my best every day, but getting paid $9 an hour and coming into work almost every day with getting told I didn't clean a room right really upsets me. I just feel we need help from somewhere. We're all sick of being treated poorly and not getting the respect that we should. Bianca Sauter, Ralph Township.
We have, I think, two of the interest surveys for custodians. We sent them packets. We
didn't get anything back.
Haven't got anything back yet. So, and we have looked at, Denise and I, like we've talked about, possibly bumping salaries. But that would have to be a negotiated MOU with the union.
Specifically to the point of not getting respect, since it was brought up in a public meeting, can you follow up on that specific part of the comment? What is the not getting respect? Being told that the room isn't clean, is that not being respected, or is there something else there that needs to be investigated? Does that make sense? Like, one thing, the room's not, if you didn't do your job, then here's the corrective action, or here's the coaching conversation. But if it's beyond that, if there's an issue, please follow up on that, since it was brought up in the public meeting. Otherwise, I would have discussed this one-on-one with the administration, just to address it, since it was brought up in a public comment.
Okay. What's your third one?
Mr. Vogt, it's from Lynn Robinson, who's a teacher. She is not a resident. Do I have your approval to read it?
Absolutely.
Lynn Robinson, I was unclear as to what the plan is for the high school teachers in regards to more planning time. I teach 4 different preps, have 7 classes a day and over 100 students to grade. Each day I teach 4 Spanish 1 classes, a Spanish 4 honors, a Spanish 5 honors, and an intro to 7th grade Spanish, and a large study hall in the cafeteria. I am beyond exhausted each and every day. That is Lynn Robinson. There are actually 3 more comments that have come in. Do you want me to continue on?
Sure.
This comment is from Jessica Wisnowski, Locust Township. The middle school also needs collaborative time, and there are multiple teachers teaching the same subject or content areas, such as math and ELA. A teacher could certainly provide busy work or a movie, but that would be less effective than having an actual virtual day. On a virtual day, teachers can provide a lesson and activity that provides more continuity of education than watching a movie. Teachers who teach the same subject across grade levels and teams of teachers in each grade level need to meet with one another at the same time to accomplish everything required to provide a strong education. At any given time during that planning, teachers may realize that they need the help of the technology department or the guidance or their administrators. Unfortunately, providing subs does not afford any of these opportunities. What is really needed in all of these three buildings is a block of time where teachers can collaborate as needed without worrying about who is free and who is still teaching at that time. That is Jessica Wisnowski, Locust Township. The next one is from Tammy Weehee of Catawissa. As a teacher myself in another district, if these teachers are only going to get 2 hours every week or every other, it is not adequate planning. Reality is that subs are going to be pulled for staff illnesses or other time off, and you will need to pull them for coverage. There will end up being no subs left to cover for planning. Teachers get sick, subs get sick or have sick children. Most days lucky to even have coverage for staff that are off, let alone planning. These teachers need more immediate planning. How is putting a movie on for 2 hours better than the children getting virtual learning at home through live instruction or videos? This is just simply to please some parents and not to enhance the student's education. You need a large pool of subs in order for this plan to work. Again, if you want adequate instruction, you need to work with the teachers and look at what's best for the students. Again, reality of it all working is going to be virtually impossible. Josh, is it possible for admin to plan how it's going to work with when they have no idea of how many subs you are going to have? There is a ton of planning involved for admin to try to figure this out. Admin is doing an excellent job trying to help teachers, despite the board declining the half days or virtual days for the teachers. It just can't happen overnight. As Mr. Becker indicates, if you get people, implementing is easy. And again, that was from Tammy Weehee of Catawissa.
Mr. Becker argued that it could happen overnight. I was asking why in the last 2 weeks we haven't started the planning for this. That is what I asked. Mr. Becker said it will take no time to implement once we know what we have. So the reality is we cannot continue with a day off or a half day off every week or every other week for the foreseeable. We just can't continue that. It's not sustainable. So if the alternative is send kids home for that half day, I don't understand how sending kids home for a virtual day or a half day of virtual learning is less of a burden on teachers to prepare than being relieved by a substitute in the classroom with no instructional expectation. I'm at a loss for this train of logic. I cannot follow it. I don't understand what is being asked for. It sounds to me, and I don't think this is true, it sounds like the only answer is a day off each week that will satisfy the teaching staff. And I'm saying that the board, I think as a whole, has said that is not a viable, sustainable option. So the reality of the situation is going to be something that no one likes on either side. Students aren't going to get great instruction for some period of the day for at least one day of the week, whether that's at home or in the building. Parents cannot continue to take time off to support at-home days, mandatory at-home days.
And so it's not a small group of parents.
It's a large.
It's a large group of parents.
I would say it's almost half the district.
Yes, at least, that just don't have the time. And their employers just don't, some people don't have personal days, vacation days. Some employers don't provide those.
The danger there is the choice that it puts on parents then, who have to choose between going to work and possibly leaving their kids at home by themselves, or not going to work and not being able to afford to pay for food.
Or losing their job.
And
so again, we're, as a board, we've been talking to the administration a lot, trying to come up with a solution for both the parents and the teachers. And I can share the frustration here. We keep just being told what doesn't work, which can be helpful sometimes, but right now what would be really helpful is some ideas on what will work for both of those parties.
Like what I'm seeing here is, so parents can't take off work and teachers need more time. So what we are trying to do is implement something in which parents don't have to take off work and teachers are still able to get more time. And it's not going to be ideal for anybody in this situation. Nothing about this is ideal. So please help us here. And what exactly do you need? I mean, my understanding is it's just that we need more time, and that's what we're trying to provide. But if more time isn't what we need, then I think that's a separate discussion. So please help us out here.
Mr. Vaught, you want me to continue? I have two more comments as of right now.
Yep, absolutely.
Norma Kern, Ralph Township. If I understand correctly, is the school board suggesting the district hire substitute teachers at $90 a day to essentially babysit for a couple hours a day to allow teachers that much needed time for planning rather than having an early dismissal? I understand we parents have to work, but we make arrangements on other early dismissals. How is this different?
The difference is this would be planned and every week from now until possibly next year. That is the difference, right? So if we can plan ahead, we would avoid that.
This isn't just a one-off occurrence.
And there is the possibility that as we continue in the pandemic, that we may be forced to full virtual instruction at any point, or back into a hybrid at any point. So for planning purposes, to minimize the days that parents are expected to be taking off of work before that, it is absolutely in the interest of the district, and I think is the appropriate course of action for the school board. And recognizing, again, I want to be clear on this because everybody keeps missing the fact that the board is recognizing that it is reasonable that the teachers need more planning time. And we're trying to come up with a reasonable solution to meet that reasonable request. But every time we put something on the table, the response seems to be that that doesn't work. And that's not enough. And if it's not enough, that's good feedback for the administration and the board to have, but how can we make it work? Because it's just taking a day off or a half day every week isn't going to work either.
I don't think we're saying it's not going to work. It's just we don't have the personnel. We're still receiving paperwork. We don't have the personnel approved right yet. And I think we all believe that if we can get these people approved and vetted, but that just takes time. People have to get their paperwork back to us. We can't just throw them in. I don't feel like we're saying no. We just have a lot of work to do paperwork-wise.
So then our discussion should be, do we need to implement something else in between from now and when it does work?
No. No, we gotta make it work.
Yeah, I mean, this week is going to be a turning point. We have meetings with admin. We've got meeting with the union set up. I mean, we don't have everything we need in place right now. So this is where we're at right now.
I think the biggest thing is, like you said, we can, if we got the people and we got them the paperwork and they were, I can approve them, we can start implementing it immediately, and as soon as we get the bodies to be able to do this, we'll be able to implement it. To what stage depends on what people. Tomorrow, like the end of the day tomorrow, can have the matrix that Bree was talking about. We can have that put together and have a plan for when this happens. Absolutely. And we can talk with the teachers about a need. They're gonna, I think what the teachers want is a day. They want virtual days every week, but as the board has clearly stated, that's not sustainable.
Next question.
Mr. Vogt, again, this is from Mrs. Lynn Robinson. I'm assuming you're okaying to read it.
Yep.
Simple one, can you approve something for next week? Early dismissal, etc. Thank you. That's it. And to this point, Mr. Vogt, that's all the questions or comments I have.
All right, I'll go through with the committee reports, and then we'll go back to the agenda hearing period, just in case you get any more. So moving on to committee reports. Facilities, finance, and activities were all canceled. Policy, Mr. Serafini, did you guys have a policy meeting? That was canceled also. VOTEC is tomorrow, so.
Yeah, because the last one we had was actually before our meeting, so you should have had a report that
Yep.
last meeting, so VOTEC will be tomorrow.
We did have a curriculum meeting tonight, so if you want to.
Sure. So just prior to this meeting, Mrs. Zigmont had a curriculum meeting. She talked about an intro to reading update, specifically discussed our conversation with the second grade team and their desire for collaborative planning times to coordinate the lessons for this new reading curriculum. There are a lot of resources available to the teachers, and they feel like if they had dedicated time to work together, they would be able to best implement the most important things. Discussed Edgenuity class in the district, or Edgenuity use in the district classroom. That's the platform that some of our cyber students are using, and Mrs. Zigmont shared that there are 6th and 7th grade, I believe, math teachers that have customized the math piece of this so that the teachers are still providing in-person instruction, but they're using Edgenuity as a resource for online practice. She shared the fidelity checklist for the Interreading curriculum and noted that she would be meeting with team leaders later this week to kind of go over them and watch things in practice so that they could work together to see what does and doesn't make sense with those checklists. She gave an update on cyber student numbers. We currently have 63 students in the district who are taking part in SOCO Cyber, the largest number of those being in 8th grade, where we have 15 students at that grade level. She shared that there would not be marking period report cards, given that weekly progress reports for parents are going to be provided, and that the final grade would either be at the end of the semester or the end of the year. And that's just due to the flexible nature of the curriculum. Students can go at their own pace and sort of pick and choose what they want to work on, so all students will not be finishing the same curriculum at the same time. She has made a request to the board, and not everybody was here, to forego the curriculum meeting November 16th, I believe, to allow Mr. Matthew Knoll from Goodenza to provide the district with a presentation on current drug trends. She feels that this would be helpful to parents and guardians to give them some additional information, and thought that it would have the furthest reach if we attached it to something like a board meeting. So that's, something that we can discuss, and if anybody has major concerns, let Jim know. She talked about the DIBEL screeners that were done, and noted that they are going to be used both for screening and also for progress monitoring, and that the math screeners are occurring. Winter Keystones are happening December 2nd and 3rd, biology for 11th grade students, December 7th and 8th, algebra for any student who completed Algebra 1 in the 2019-2020 school year, January 6th and 7th, lit for the 11th grade students, and students in grades 3 through 6 will complete paper and pencil PSSAs, with some students who have specific accommodations being online. Students in 7th and 8th grade will complete them online. That would be in the spring. She gave a Title I update. 18% of students in K through 4 are engaged with Title I services this school year. The largest majority being the first grade, where there are 41% of our first graders being engaged with their Title I teachers, who are very busy. I asked her if she could reach out to surrounding districts just to try to help us interpret this data. I think we all knew that there was going to be increased need based on COVID, but the first grade is really a significant number as compared to other grades, and again, it may just be based on grade level and when their education was impacted in person. I told her I thought it would be helpful if we understood kind of where other districts are, because there's a lot of people trying to satisfy what is kind of expected, what are other people doing, or is there something else that we should be looking at here within our school. So she has a curriculum meeting coming up and was going to try and get a feel just for how these beginning of year screeners are looking for other districts. She gave a homeless update. We currently have 8 students in the district classified as homeless. Mr. Becker spoke about us seeking EL services for 2 students. Gave a budget update, and I think that was everything.
So you're gonna schedule that drug program for the curriculum meeting, and
Yeah, we'll have a curriculum meeting and we'll record it and then we'll put it out on Facebook.
it's gonna be on the web.
Brianna, what did you say about not having grades at the end of the year?
So for the cyber schools, it's a kind of a work at your own pace thing. That's why they're doing the weekly progress reports to make sure that they're monitoring student progress. But if a student decides that, from my understanding, and Mrs. Zigmont, feel free to correct me if I'm misrepresenting, if I decide that I want to do all science for the first 3 months because I hate it and I want to get it out of the way, I can do that, whereas other students may be engaging in every subject every day. So really, you have to get everything done by the end of the year, but how you do that could look 63 different ways.
Okay.
Moving on to negotiations personnel, we did not have any meetings. CSIU, Mr. Clebon.
CSIU is still going virtual. There were some, there's a meeting coming up this Wednesday. That's going to be virtual also. Basically what they've been going over is just financial, budget, position transfers, salary adjustments, different things here and there, some resignations, some hirings, nothing really much to report on. It's not like being there when you go up to the seat. When I was attending the meetings at the CSIU, they were a lot more informational than the virtual meetings. It just seems like the virtual meetings now, they give you a little bit of information. A lot of it doesn't apply to us, but it's basically about what their plans are. They're hoping that we can go to regular meetings inside the building up there. So they every month they have a meeting that allows a different person come in or group come in and basically reviews some different programs with us for education and grants, etc. Things like that. That's happened lately in the last 4 or 5 months. So it's disappointing, but that's just the way it is. And as long as I'm on here with the CSIU, because I'm through with that, I just want to go back to the Finance Committee and the Treasurer's Report. Just want to give a quick idea to the people out there and maybe some of the board members that weren't aware of or not aware of some of the spending that's been going that's been happening. Is I'm pretty sure we're doing fine with the budget. We spent $1,148,000 this past month. Some of the big ticket items, big price items, are the Geisinger Health Plan was $331,000. In addition to that, we had about $95,000 other than SOCO cyber schools that we paid tuition for. We also had a pretty big bill for Columbia Montour Votech was $131,000, and the biggest one was for our interest that was due on our bond issue, which was $429,000. Along with some other, like light bill was $12,000, but out of the $1,148,000, a little over $1 million of that was paid for some really high ticket, expensive expenses that we have that we run the school with. I'm stumbling a little bit because I'm looking over some of these other bills here. The workman's comp premium came in at almost $15,000. CSIU is another $26,000. Just want to make the public aware that we have a very low budget at $23,500,000. It's probably the lowest in the central part of Pennsylvania. And what we accomplished with that small budget when all the other local schools around us are 30 to 40 million a year. We do, I think Denise does a great job. The whole school does a great job. From the business manager down to the athletic director and anybody else who, the band directors, anybody who uses money and needs equipment down at the school, they're pretty frugal with what they're buying. So it's amazing how we can run the facility. And plus Fullington's like 180,000 a month. That bill is going to be coming up once the negotiations are over with them for the spring charges and summer charges for their contract. But just want to give the public an idea of what kind of bills are being paid out of that 23.5 million. So million four, whatever I said it was. Yeah, $1,150,000 basically. Out of 23 mil was spent in the last month. So there are some pretty expensive items that we're paying for that it takes to run the school district. It's not just the teachers' salaries and their benefits, but there's a lot of other items that we have to pay for. So that's all I have to say, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clevon. At this time, we'll accept comments from district residents and or district property owners on action items on the agenda via Microsoft Forums. Do you have any more, Mr. Davis?
I have one. I don't believe it's on an action item. I think it's just on a comment on the previous conversation. Would you like me to read it?
Sure.
Norma Kern, Ralph Township. We previously lived in a school district in which every other Wednesday was a planned early dismissal. It was on the district calendar. The parents knew their children would be dismissed early and were able to make appropriate arrangements. The teachers and administration used that time for planning and collaboration. Would our school district be able to do something like that? At this point, actually one more came in. This one is from Tammy Tuzalewski, Roaring Creek Township. Her question is, how are other districts able to give their teachers time to plan? Bloomsburg and Central have every Friday off. Are their parents losing their jobs? And that, at this point, I believe that's all I have.
All right, thanks.
Hang on. So I want to be clear on, like, we're not just making up the parent concern. I think the board as a whole has received
several emails,
many emails from the parents in this district pleading with us to figure out a solution that keeps the kids in school. On top of the phone calls, text messages, and in person, hey, come here, I need to talk to you right now about this, meetings out and about. So if you don't think it's a real concern, please ask those parents around you what their thoughts are.
We're not talking with the parents at Central or Bloomsburg.
All we're hearing is from the parents in our district who we represent. It's not a great situation. I wish there wasn't a pandemic and we didn't have to figure this out. We are not Central, who has a bigger budget and has a different composition of district residents. We are not Bloomsburg. We're also not Mount Carmel or Shamokin.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Davis?
Mr. Vogt, at this time, that is all I have.
All right, at this time, the chair is looking for a motion to approve the minutes and invoices.
So moved.
Second.
By Josh and second by Drew.
Can I ask a question on the invoices?
Yep, absolutely.
On the athletic fund invoice, about the third to last one was a larger bill for demands. I'm assuming that's some kind of jerseys or something.
It's under uniforms. I think it might be some refurbishing of equipment.
Okay. And Mr. Claybon had referenced the amount we're paying to out-of-district cyber school. Do we have any idea how that stacks up to prior years?
We're right at the same. Having our own cyber school has helped us tremendously. Now we will, we do have some expenses for our own cyber school. We budgeted $42,000 in the CARES Act. We're probably going to need another $50,000 to take care of this year for our SOCO cyber kids.
Okay, one last question. Just in general, as we look at these invoices, how do we have an idea if we were starting to go over budget or if we were basically in line with where we thought we were at a given month?
Actually, I have that on the my list for a report on the Facilities and Finance Committee meeting, so that we can we've passed the October 1 child count. So now is a really good time. Everybody's settled. We know what's going on. So I have that on for a report for you guys for that meeting.
Great, thank you.
And you can also, like when I send out, like the last board report I sent out was more detailed, and you'll be able to see in the tuition categories for charter schools, you'll be able to see how much we've used in those categories as well.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 9-0. Does anybody have a problem with items fiscal A, B, and C as putting them together as a block? This time the chair is looking for a motion to approve items fiscal A, B, and C. We have a motion.
So moved. Second.
Josh? Eli? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? 9-0.
I'd like to thank
Yeah.
Hope United Methodist Church for their donation. Greatly appreciated. What'd you say, Teresa? It was $500?
Yes.
That's what that was?
Much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, it's there.
Oh,
It's there.
okay.
Yep.
On that note, if I can just give a little information. The state has now approved for us to continue with the seamless summer option, so lunches will be free through the end of June, as long as money holds out. Previously, it was December. Now they're saying June, but it just depends on how much money is available. So the $500 donation that we got actually will go to lunch accounts that were already in arrears to relieve families of that pressure.
What's that balance look like?
The
Unpaid lunch?
unpaid lunch. I don't actually have that at the top of my fingertips right now, but
next,
I can have a report for you on that.
just to see where it's at.
Yeah. We don't have as high a balance as a lot of school
I know,
districts.
we've talked about it before. I remember you saying that. But
No.
just-
Typically, the donations we get seem to go mostly toward the elementary lunch balances, so the high school might end up being a little higher than elementary. So we usually let the donors choose where they want it to go.
Yeah, it'd be good if we could just throw that number out in case somebody else is.
Sure.
Keep the same.
I will have that for you.
All right, on to items personnel. There's A through I there. Do we want to vote them as a block, or does anybody want anything taken out of there? Good.
Block it.
At this time, the chair is looking for a motion to approve items personnel. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. We have a motion.
Motion.
By Greg. Second by Eli. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 9-0. Moving on to policy and programs. Action item A and B. We have a problem with voting these as a block? At this time, the chair is looking for a motion to approve items, policy and programs A and B. Motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Josh, second by Bree. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? 9-0. At this time, is there any board comment?
I had something that I just wanted to make sure that we try to put the light on. Going on what Tony said earlier about parent-teacher conferences, I agree. If these are virtual conferences and we're talking about 20-minute slots, and I know that conferences always run over because I'm notorious for that myself, it seems like we should try to find a way to optimize that. Now, obviously, you can't just say everyone do Monday, everyone do Tuesday, everyone do morning, everybody do evening, but I think that I wouldn't be offended if my children's teachers said, you know, are you available X time and X time, so that they could try and maximize a block of free time for planning instead of, you know, being interrupted every 20 minutes. That may be an ideal dream world, but if there's some way to get them some, you know, blocks of time there, and they can work together with the teachers and their teams, you know, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but it seems like if people aren't coming in and out of the building, maybe there's an opportunity there to gain some ground. Coach Derek Stein for the girls soccer team celebrated his 200th win since our last meeting, so congratulations to Derek. On the Facebook page, Ann Katona Lynn has a mental health video up discussing some things that we've been talking about at Southern Columbia, and has moved on to her part of the process with engaging our community stakeholders. So asking the community to fill out a brief survey at the end of that video, which will help the district understand the needs of everybody that we're serving. So I would highly encourage all parents to watch the video and give us your raw, unfiltered comments, because that's how we're going to affect the most change. That's probably on the website as well, I guess.
If it's not, we're going to make sure it is, because in case people don't have Facebook.
The Student Supports newsletter also came out. I believe it was its inaugural issue. It was really nice. It was a way for the district to get to know our resources, our guidance counselors within our buildings, and some of our other mental health resources. Some really exciting things that I saw in there was Mr. Rooney and Mrs. Madeira, I believe, are looking to have the first Tiger Olympics in the spring. So they're looking for some support in interest and time and potentially donations to help fund that project. There was also a list of critical hygiene items that are needed by families in our district. If anybody is interested in donating to families in need within our district, there's a list in that newsletter, and it gives you the option to kind of sign up so that, you know, 15 people aren't buying socks and nobody's buying soap. Another way to give back if you're looking for an opportunity to be helpful. Student Council is having a trunk or treat Thursday, October 29th from 5 to 7 in the school parking lot. Masks and social distancing are required, but I think it's a really great thing. So kudos to Student Council for trying to help those younger trick-or-treaters find a way to maybe trick-or-treat if they can't get out into the community. HEART, which is the Elementary Parent-Teacher Association, has sent out their Microsoft form for homeroom coordinators, and I think the deadline is either now or coming super soon. That's available on their Facebook page if you're interested in being a homeroom coordinator. And then HEART's first meeting of the school year will be virtual on Facebook on October 22nd at 6 p.m. I think that's everything that I know about. So if there's good things happening that I didn't mention, send them my way, and I'm happy to share, because, you know, we talk a lot about our angst and our frustrations and where we feel like things are going wrong, but there's still a whole lot of things that are going right, and a lot of people working hard to make it happen. So happy to share those things.
Thanks for sharing that, Bree.
It sounds like we are allowing people to come in person to the next meeting, but we are still completely leaving it available online.
Yep, that would be the plan.
So you have come, that's more of a dialogue, you're welcome to come. Otherwise, keep utilizing online. We enjoy seeing so much participation there.
Masks required.
Mask required.
The only other thing I have was on October 5th, we had an executive session to discuss the possible litigation. And also we'll be having an executive session tonight after the meeting for the same purpose. Anybody else have anything? This time the chair's looking for a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have any more public comment?
Mr. Vogt, at this point, I do not have any more public comment.
All right, I'll be looking for that motion to adjourn. Motion by Josh, second by Bree. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? 9-0. Thank you again for everybody participating.